You're standing at the bathroom mirror, 7 in the morning, razor in your hand. She texted you last night. Nothing urgent, just, hey, did you eat? You read it. Set the phone down, watched 2 more highlights, went to sleep. You didn't text back. Standing here this morning, razor halfway across your jaw, you realize something. That didn't bother you. Not the not responding. People get busy. It's that you feel nothing about it, no guilt, no mental note to follow up. The message existed. You processed it. You moved on, you set the razor down, same face, same eyes. The number in your bank account is different. Everything else is supposed to be the same. You're not sure it is. The version of you that used to read her texts 3 times before writing back, he's still in here somewhere. You can feel him. Faintly. Like a word you've forgotten but know you used to know. You pick the razor back up, you keep going. You are 22, $430 in your checking account. 11 days to go. There's a girl, she texts, and you text back immediately. Not because you're trying to seem available. Because you are. Because at 22 with $430, she is the most interesting thing happening in your life. You plan a date, your budget is whatever's already in the apartment. 2 water bottles. The kind with the dented lids from moving too many times, and you tell her you know a spot. A bench outside the public library on 5th. Small garden beside it that nobody uses on weekday afternoons. She shows up in a yellow jacket. You notice the yellow jacket. You will remember it for years. You sit there 2 hours and 40 minutes. You know this because later that evening you check your phone and realize you didn't look at it once. Not once. Not because you decided not to, because it never occurred to you to. She talks about her roommate situation, some small conflict, the kind that matters a lot when you're 22. You listen, not the kind where you're building your response while her mouth is still moving. The real kind. Following her. Inside what she's saying, she says something funny and you laugh before you've decided to laugh. That's the thing. At $0, your responses aren't managed, they just happen. You haven't learned yet to curate yourself in real time. You walk her home. 6 blocks. You take the long way without mentioning it. That night, you're eating instant noodles thinking about something small she said about her mother. Halfway through a sentence. Almost in passing. You're turning it over. Not because you made a note to remember. Because you were paying the kind of attention that makes things stick without trying. Here's what nobody tells you about this level. You think the problem is the $430. You think with more stability, more options, you'd be a better version of this. You're wrong. And you won't know you're wrong until it's too late to do much about it. At 0, you had nothing to offer except your full attention. You gave it completely because you didn't know yet how expensive it was. You'll spend the next 20 years learning. You got the job. Not a great job. A real job. Badge, direct deposit, a manager who remembers your name. After taxes, $2,800 a month, arriving on the same day every 2 weeks. You've never had money show up that reliably. It feels like solid ground. You move into your own place. Small, 1 bedroom, galley kitchen, window facing another building's wall. But the lease has only your name on it. You close the door the first night and stand in the silence, and it's the best silence you've ever been in. You start dating someone new, smart, funny. The kind of person who has opinions about things you haven't thought about yet. You want to take her somewhere good, not expensive. Just good. Lighting that's intentional, menu without pictures. $40 a person without drinks. You do the math getting dressed, then stop and tell yourself you're past that. You order without hesitating. Wave off the shared appetizer. No, let's get it. You don't look at the right side of the menu the way you used to. You start talking about work, not because she asked, because you want to tell her. You mentioned twice that your team lead specifically asked for your input. You don't notice you mentioned it twice. You keep extending the story past the interesting part because her face still looks impressed and you're not ready for that to stop. Here's what you miss entirely. Halfway through dinner, she mentions her sister. Something real, a conflict that's been sitting on her for weeks. She says it almost in passing, the way people say the things actually bothering them, sideways, half hoping someone catches it. You catch it. You say, "That sounds tough," and go back to the project update. She nods. The dinner continues. You pay 112 with tip. On the drive home, you replay the parts where she laughed. You don't replay the moment about her sister. It doesn't occur to you to. The moment you started performing, you stopped noticing. Those two things happened at exactly the same time. You traded presence for image. What you got back, the confidence, the feeling of being on your way, felt more solid than what you gave up. What you gave up was the thing on the bench outside the library. She texts the next day, says she had a good time. She did. But something that was there on the bench wasn't there at the restaurant. Neither of you has a name for it yet. And you're 27 now. Title changed, salary changed, apartment changed, better neighborhood, the kind where the coffee shop on the corner knows what single origin means and charges accordingly. Your calendar is never empty anymore. There are always three things running in the background: a deliverable, a conversation you need to have, a decision waiting on someone else's decision. Your brain has reorganized around this. It processes in parallel now. It has to. Here's what nobody warns you about. The parallel processing doesn't stop when you leave the office. You're sitting across from her at dinner, Claire, 4 months in, and she's telling you about her day. Something happened with a coworker. A small injustice, the kind that stings more than it should, because it's the third time, not the first. She's 3 sentences in when you glance at your watch. Not dramatically, just a flick of the wrist. Automatic. Same gesture you make between meetings. She doesn't call it out, probably didn't even register it consciously. But something in her voice shifts. The story gets a little shorter than it was going to be. She finishes. She looks at you. You say, "Here's what I'd do." No asking if she wants advice. No sitting in it for even 1 second. Straight to the recommendation. Efficient, clean, actionable. The kind of response that would earn respect in any conference room. She says, "Yeah, maybe." Then goes quiet in a way that's slightly different from regular quiet. You don't catch the difference. You refill your water glass and move on. Here's what was actually happening in that pause. She didn't want the solution. She wanted you to stay inside the problem with her for a minute. Acknowledge that it was unfair without immediately routing around it. The solution was correct. It just arrived 90 seconds too early. And in those 90 seconds was the thing she was actually asking for. You've been solving her. Every time she brings you something difficult, you run it through the same framework you use at work. Identify, analyze, resolve, and you hand it back improved and think that's the job. One evening, she tells you about a decision she's been carrying for weeks. Whether to take a risk, whether to stay safe. She tells you carefully, the way you tell someone something you've been waiting for the right moment to say. You listen. 2 clarifying questions. Clear recommendation. She thanks you. 3 days later, you ask how it's going, and she looks at you for just a moment before she answers. 1 second, maybe less. She realized something in that second that you won't realize for years. She handed you one of the most uncertain things she was carrying, and you handed it back, solved, and moved on. What she needed was someone to say, "This is scary and I'm here, and we can figure it out together." Together. That word. You haven't used it in a while, not the way it means something. You've started calling exhaustion maturity, emotional distance, discipline. At $100,000, you stopped sitting with people. You started processing them. You're 31. You get invited to things now. Not networking events with name badges and lukewarm beer. Real things. Dinner at someone's house where the guest list has 12 people and you recognize 2 names from the news. A product launch where the invite came through a person, not a mailing list. You go to these things. You bring her, Maya, 8 months in, warm, genuinely kind in the way that's rare, not performed kindness, the kind that shows up without an audience. You've seen it in small moments when there was nothing to gain from being kind, and she was kind anyway. You know this about her. And still, one evening before a dinner at your colleague's place, doorman building view, you're both getting ready, and she walks out in a dress she loves. You can tell she loves it by the way she's standing. She bought it 3 months ago and lit up a little when she got home with it. You look at her, Maybe the blue one? It's a nicer crowd tonight. Gentle, casual, almost reasonable. She doesn't argue, goes back to the bedroom, changes, comes out and says she's ready. You tell her she looks great. She does look great. The evening goes well. You introduce Maya smoothly. She holds the room without trying. On the way home she's quiet, not upset quiet, just inside herself in a way that has a specific texture. You ask if she's okay. She says she's just tired. You believe her because it's easier than the alternative. Here's what was happening in the bedroom when she changed. She stood in front of her closet 45 seconds. Took off the dress she loved. Put on the one you suggested. Looked at herself in the mirror for a moment. Not checking. Something else. Something that doesn't have a clean name. That night she's a little quieter than usual. Not cold, just contained. You don't connect it to the dress. 3 months later you realize you haven't seen that dress again. You don't say anything. Neither does she. It just stopped appearing. The way things disappear when they've been given a reason to. You didn't think of it as a filter. You thought of it as a preference. But preferences about how someone presents themselves aren't preferences. They're instructions. And instructions, however softly delivered, land as instructions. You're not a controlling person. That's the complicated part. You're doing something more subtle, optimizing her. Same instinct that makes you good at your job. Identify the variable. Adjust for the environment. Improve the outcome. She is not a variable. Your defaults now say optimize the situation. Control the signal. Manage the output. Maya is not a situation, not a signal, not an output, but your defaults don't know that. You become easier to admire and harder to know. And the people closest to you feel that gap the most. You're 34. The number crossed while you were on a call. You didn't notice until that evening. Open the app, balance just sitting there. 7 figures. Quiet, like it had always been planning to arrive. You told no one, not even her. Maya, still together. 3 years. She moved in 18 months ago. Her books on the shelf, her coffee mug on the left side of the cabinet, a small ceramic plant pot she brought from her old place that you've bumped into with your hip approximately 40 times and never moved, because she put it there, and it being there means something to her. You notice things like that. You're not absent, not in the dramatic way. You're present, you provide, you execute. When she's stressed about something with her family, you book the flight or she asks. When she mentions offhand that she hasn't slept well, you research mattresses that weekend, and a new one arrives Tuesday. When she has a hard week, you make a reservation somewhere she's wanted to go for months, and tell her Friday night, clear your schedule. You're good at this. Genuinely, measurably good at this. But one Thursday evening she comes home and sits down on the couch without taking her coat off. Just sits. You're at the kitchen counter finishing something. You look up. Rough day? She nods. You want to talk about it? She starts to. A project she cares about got deprioritized. Not cancelled. Just moved down the list. Indefinitely. 7 months of work. It mattered to her the way things matter when you've put a real piece of yourself into them. She's talking. You're listening. And somewhere in the middle of her third sentence, your brain does the thing it does now. 3 moves ahead. She should escalate. Reframe the project in terms of Q3 priorities. Document her contributions before the institutional memory disappears. She finishes the sentence. You say, do you want to get out of the city this weekend? I can find something. A cabin, 2 nights, just decompress. She stops. 1 second. 2. Sure, wherever you want. Not wherever you want, like she's open and excited. Wherever you want, like she already knows there's no other answer available. Like she tried to hand you something, and you handed her back an itinerary. You book the cabin. Good one. 2 hours north, creek view, fireplace. You send her the link. She reacts with a heart. The weekend is fine. The cabin is beautiful. You cook together Saturday night, and it's warm and easy. You think, this is good. We're good. And you are good. In every way the word good can mean when applied to the surface of something. Here's what you don't know is happening. She has a friend she's known since college. And what that friend knows, what Maya has said out loud in the specific vocabulary that women use with each other when they're naming something they can't say at home, is this. He's wonderful. He takes care of everything. I just wish sometimes he would let me be a mess without fixing it. That sentence, you have never heard it. It has never been said to you directly because the environment where it would be said, the sitting with it, the staying in it, the not reaching for the solution, that environment doesn't really exist in your apartment anymore. You replaced it. Slowly. One booking and one reservation and one solved problem at a time. You replaced presence with provision. And the dangerous part, the provision, is real. But care has two modes. There's the mode that fixes things, and there's the mode that just stays. You've gotten so good at the first that you've forgotten the second one exists. There's a photo on your phone, 2 water bottles with dented lids, a bench outside a library. October light. She's laughing at something you said. You in the photo are looking at her laugh. Not at the camera, not at your phone, at her. Just at her. You open that photo sometimes late at night when Maya is asleep and you're still at the counter. You look at that person and think, what did he know that I don't? He had $430. Nothing to offer except time and attention. He gave both away without calculating the cost because he didn't know they had a cost. You know now, that's the problem. You budget attention the way you budget everything else, toward the highest priority items. And somewhere along the way, she stopped being the highest priority item. Not because you love her less, because the list got longer. And she, generous, patient, quietly adaptive, moved herself down the list so you wouldn't have to. You confused providing for someone with being present for them. Those are not the same thing. The distance between them is where most relationships quietly end. Not with a fight, not with a rupture, with an anywhere is fine said in a voice that stopped expecting anything different. You booked a great cabin. She needed you to sit on the couch with your coat still on. You're 38. Maya left on a Tuesday. Not dramatically, she packed a bag over a weekend while you were at a conference in Austin. Monday night you came back, ceramic plant pot was gone, message on your phone 3 paragraphs long and very carefully written. You read it twice, responded thoughtfully, told her you understood, told her you were sorry. You meant both. You cried once briefly in the shower Wednesday morning. By Friday you were functional. And that scared you. Not the leaving made sense when you read the 3 paragraphs. What scared you was how fast functional arrived. 11 days. That's how long it took. You filed that away. 6 months later, you're back out there. Dating apps. A few introductions through work. You go on dates the way you execute projects. Prepared. Criteria running quietly in the background. Not written down, just there. She needs to understand your world. The pace, the travel, needs to be self-sufficient. Interesting in rooms where interesting is the minimum entry requirement. You call this knowing what you want. It's close. But it's not quite that. What you have is a job description, and you are interviewing for someone to fill the role. 3rd date with a woman named Jess. Sharp, works in policy, looks at you directly when she talks, the kind of eye contact that signals she's actually there. Halfway through dinner she asks, what are you actually afraid of? It's the right question. You answer it. Too smoothly. Professional risk, leading something large, decisions that affect people's livelihoods. It lands well. She leans in slightly. But you've told this story before, not to her, to others. Enough times that it's been edited down, the rough parts filed, the vulnerable parts positioned. You've told the story about your fear of failure enough times that it now arrives pre-edited, pre-timed, pre-felt. You know exactly how much to reveal so that it feels like everything. She shares something of her own. You ask a follow-up. You make her feel heard, because you know how to make someone feel heard. That's a real skill. Developed the same way you developed every other skill. Repetition, refinement. The dinner continues. You drive home and have the thought, you were performing again tonight. Not the anxious way you performed at 35,000. Different. Smoother. Presenting the version of yourself that has done enough self-reflection to seem genuinely reflective. Emotionally available on the surface. Everything actually important behind glass. Jess was probably doing the same thing. 2 people across a table, both presenting the most compelling version of themselves. Both assessing whether the other matches the internal criteria list. Both calling it connection. It's not connection. It's a pitch meeting with candles. You think emotional control is the same thing as emotional health. It's not. Emotional control is a performance tool. Emotional health is what you have when you don't need to perform. You are trying to find someone who fits the life you've already built, not someone to build a life with. Those two things look identical from the outside. Same dinners, same conversations, same progression towards something more serious. From the inside, they're completely different. One starts with you. With the architecture of your existing life, you're looking for a person-shaped piece that fits the gap. The other starts with her, with genuine curiosity about who she is and what she's afraid of, really afraid of, not the dinner party version. You haven't started with her in a long time. There's a version of you that knows this, shows up at odd moments, waiting for a flight, early morning before the calendar activates, a flash of the bench outside the library, the yellow jacket, the 2 water bottles, the afternoon you checked your phone 0 times, and you think, not with nostalgia, with the precise discomfort of someone identifying a specific loss, I used to be able to just be there. Without the framework running. Can I still do that? You don't answer. You open your calendar. 4 things on tomorrow's schedule before 9 a.m. You set the phone face down. The man who is interviewing for a partner has already decided the role exists. He just needs someone to fill it. That is a very different thing from falling in love. You're 43. The apartment is not an apartment anymore. It's a house. Gate, garden, a kitchen that gets written up in the design section of a magazine you've never read. You didn't buy it to impress anyone. It made sense at this asset level. Your accountant and your attorney both agreed. Her name is Rachel. 4 years together, engaged 14 months. Wedding being planned by someone whose job is planning weddings, and she is very good at her job and the whole thing is under control. Rachel is, by every observable measure, right, intelligent, moves through your world with ease, her own career, her own income, her own direction, didn't need you financially when you met, doesn't need you now. You chose well. Your friends say it. Your mother says it. The version of you at 22 would look at this life and think, you made it. One evening in November you're both at home. No event, no reservation, just the house and the quiet. Rachel is reading on the couch. You're at the table, laptop open, not working exactly, just the laptop being open the way a security blanket is open. She looks up. What are you thinking about? Nothing much. Which is true. Mind running lightly over surfaces, not landing anywhere. But you look at her in that moment. Really look. And you realize, with the specific clarity that comes at 43 when you've stopped lying to yourself about most things, you don't know what she's afraid of. Not tonight. Not in general. You know her schedule, her coffee order, her sister's name, the neighborhood she grew up in, the professor in college who changed how she thought about her field. The surface in high resolution. But the underneath, the thing she lies awake thinking about at 2 in the morning. The fear she doesn't dress up before she takes it out. The version of herself she hasn't shown anyone completely. You don't know that. And the harder question, arriving right behind it, have you ever asked? Not the dinner party version. Not what are your goals. The real version. The one that requires you to turn off the framework and sit in whatever comes out without reaching for the solution. The answer is uncomfortable. Somewhere along the way you replaced curiosity with competence. Got so good at providing the right thing that you stopped asking what the right thing was. You just proceeded as if you knew. And she, intelligent, self-sufficient, fluent in your world, learned to work within that. Not unhappily, just adaptively. Which means there's a version of Rachel you've never met. Not because she hid it, because you never created the conditions where it would feel safe to show up. You built a life that's airtight, optimized, structurally sound from every external angle, and airtight doesn't breathe. You close the laptop without checking the last thing, without the usual rituals of disengagement. You walk to the couch. You sit down next to her, not across, next to, close enough that your shoulder is against hers. She looks up from her book. What are you actually afraid of? She looks at you. 1 second, 2, 3. Not surprise exactly. More like recognition, like a door she'd stopped expecting to open just opened. She closes the book. She thinks before she answers. And the thinking itself tells you this is real. She tells you, it takes a while. Not linear, doubles back on itself the way real things do. Something about her work, something about her mother, something about a version of herself she's worried she's losing track of. Small things and large things woven together the way fear actually is. Not one clean narrative, but several tangled ones. And as she talks, you realize something that lands quietly and stays. She's rehearsed this conversation before. Not with you. Alone. In the car. In the shower. In the spaces you left unfilled. She's been having this conversation with a version of you that wasn't there yet. You listen. You don't solve anything. You just stay there with your shoulder against hers and let the words land without redirecting them. Afterward, when she's fallen asleep and you're still on the couch in the dark, you think about the bench outside the library, the 2 water bottles, the yellow jacket. The afternoon you gave away your full attention without knowing it had a price. Attention was never the thing you had because you were broke. Attention was the thing you had because you hadn't yet learned to be anywhere other than where you were. The money didn't take it. The money built a world with enough rooms that you could always be in a different one. Enough tasks that presence could always be deferred. After this call, after this quarter, after things settle down. Things never settle down. There is no after. There's only the couch, the shoulder. The question asked out loud instead of managed around. You didn't lose the ability to love. You lost the habit of attention. Somewhere between the bench and the boardroom, between the dented water bottles and the house with the gate, you forgot that attention was always the whole thing. Not the flight you booked. Not the cabin with the creek view. Not the reservation at the right restaurant. The 2 hours and 40 minutes on a bench in October, when you checked your phone 0 times, because it never once occurred to you to. That was it. That was the whole thing. You're still at the bathroom mirror. The water went cold 10 minutes ago. You didn't notice. There's a photo on your phone. 2 water bottles with dented lids. A bench. October light going gold. She's laughing. You're looking at her laugh. Not at the camera. Not past her. At her. Just at her. The whole frame of you oriented toward her the way a plant orients toward a window. You look at that person and recognize the quality of his attention. You open the messages. Her text from last night is still there. Hey. Did you eat? You look at it for a moment. Then you type, no. I'm sorry I didn't respond last night. Do you want to get breakfast? You look at the message before you send it. Not reviewing it for tone. Not optimizing it. Just reading it the way you'd read something true before you say it out loud. You send it. You put the phone face down on the counter. You pick up the razor. Finish what you started. Somewhere this morning a 22-year-old is filling 2 water bottles from the tap, the kind with the dented lids for moving too many times. He's checking his bank account, $430 until Friday. Heading out the door to meet someone on a bench. He thinks the problem is the $430. He has no idea he's about to have the richest 2 hours and 40 minutes of his life. And he won't know it. Not for a long time. Not until the water's already gone cold.